36 or 37. His brother was 2 years younger. Besides their country home at Kariti, they had a house in Baga Bazaar, Calcutta. A young devotee named Hari accompanied them on their visit to Sri Ramakrishna. And Hari was married but greatly devoted to the master. Master, hello, why haven't you visited Akshi?
Om Yam Brahma Varnendra Rudra Marutaha Shtanvanti Davoishtavoy Vedai Sangha Krama Para Upanishadoy Gyanti Yam Samagaha Dhyana Vashtita Tadgatena Manasya Pashanti Yam Yogino Yashantam Navidhu Sura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Our eternal salutations to that one who is the truth of life and existence, and whom the devotees call by various names. Our eternal salutations to that one whose glories are sung in the various scriptures of the different religious traditions of the world, but whose infinite and undying grandeur no mortal mind can comprehend. Our eternal salutations to that one upon whom the devotees meditate in the shrine of their hearts, realizing an ineffable presence in their deepest contemplations. May he prompt our minds toward the path of truth and righteousness. May she reveal herself into our souls and dispel the gloom of death, fear, doubt, and darkness. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karva Vahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidveshavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the teachings or with the world. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. And with the recitation of that peace chant out of the Upanishads and Vedas, we open up the second class on the Akshi Upanishad, Akshi, to see, as it were. And opening up that class, we recite that sloka, Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu. May we not find fault with each other, with the teachings, or with the world. That's a tall order. in an imperfect world with so many problems. Probably be good to start with the teachings. Just accept them as they are, truth teachings. It's come to my understanding over the years I've been teaching Vedanta to the Americans and Westerners that people think there's my truth and there's your truth. People think I have my own path. And basically, you see these charts here, I'm going to create a chart where it just shows the way. And then all these other little lines going off the side that people are calling my path. You know, if somebody creates their own path and walks their own path, then it's their ego that's doing that. But there's just a broad ocean of consciousness and two streams leading to and from it. One is called the Kaivalya Pragbara, the path to freedom, which gets beyond religion and other limitations. And then there's one called Samsara Pragbara, which is an ocean of a river of suffering. Pragbara means dam, so this is one of the ancient teachings in India. So it's not that you shouldn't carve out your own path, you're going to need to do that, but you must know that there is an open, wide open way and path. Our founder here, Lex Hixon, called it the open space beyond religion. And if you can only drop the limitations of your thinking process, which is what we just chanted, may Brahman illumine our thinking process, then you can stop finding fault with the teachings and stop finding fault with each other and stop finding fault with the world. The world will be perfect as it is in its imperfection. You say, give it that much. It's perfect in its imperfection. And the idea is that you have a path and you see it leading to the summit, but as you walk it, there are boulders in the way and trees have fallen over it, and you have to stay on that path. You might have to take a sidetrack and go around or jump the stump. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the stump's the ego. There's a big stump in front of the opening to your house, he said. So when you encounter obstacles in the path, it increases your strength, and you must be strong in order to walk the spiritual path. It's not for the weak. And it's not going to depend on a savior, and it's not going to depend upon fundamentalist thinking and so forth. It's wide open and free as you are. That's your original nature, and that's what the sun god has been telling Samkriti in the opening of this Akshi Upanishad, which we tended to yesterday with this chart. You see, the sun is so many things, but we take it on the physical alone, and we find out that it lights up everything, gives the power to the eyes to see. If you want a quick review for those of you who weren't here today, we can take in some of the qualities of the sun god. You see, there's the revealer of darkness. It's an excess of light. So much light that people actually see darkness when they look at it. And that darkness is like Mother Kali, the radiance of Mother Kali, but it also signifies that your senses get overwhelmed, and so you have to shut them down. The senses are limited by nature. That's said in the Upanishads. The five senses are outward going, therefore they're defective. That's a direct quote from the Upanishads. So that's why people shut them down. And they do that unconsciously in sleep, and then they see God in deep sleep, but they don't come back with the memory of it because their channels, these nadis, are not open. They can't see the light in deep sleep. They haven't opened their third eye. They closed their outer eyes, and then in dream they saw things, and they closed those eyes, and then they went into deep sleep and didn't open your third eye. So that's Jnana Chakshu, the wisdom eye, which both Krishna and Christ and 5 other religions mention. I found 7 different religions that mention the third eye. I have a chart on that, of course. So that's going to fall upon you to keep your consciousness with you at all times. And so this earth and this life is practice. Swami Vivekananda would have put it very blatantly to his students. He might not have told the general public this, but he said, all of life is a rush towards death. Therefore, your life is a rehearsal for death. Oh, that's a very sobering thought. But that's what you do every night. When you go to sleep, you die. Your senses die. Your ego dies in deep sleep. And you still come back fine. So you come bouncing back out of it. So consciousness is that facile and is that able to shift levels. Consciousness actually is all pervasive. So it's not moving. It's just opening up and closing at certain locations inside of you. That's your consciousness you're talking about. So you shouldn't think of it, your mind as expanding or something like that, or consciousness expanding. That was in the 60s, the Gurus told you that. That was inadequate way of explaining it. It's all pervasive, and you open up to it, and then that consciousness reveals any given thing you want. In yoga, that's called samyama. If you know your yoga, I mean your authentic yoga, not just the physical yoga, then you know that there are 8 limbs, and the last 3 limbs are concentration, meditation, and samadhi. Dharma, dhyan, and samadhi. So if you have climbed the tree of yoga inwardly and have found have mastered those 3 limbs, then you put them all together as one, and it's a great concentration. It's not just a small concentration, like on a paravid, lower knowledge, or even on paravidya, where you have a flash of light that you see. Sun God reveals his true form as inner light. But it's actually a concentration based on all 3 of those limbs of yoga put together so that the yogi or the yogini can open up the truth to any matter, any given matter, or any level of consciousness, or any world culture that's struggling or striving to transcend its own limitations, like, say, your ancestors, or form a place called heaven. We looked at that yesterday on the other chart, Bur, Buvar, Svar, or earth and lower heaven and higher heaven, basically. And those are known to us, to those who believe in heaven. But the Indians long ago, the rishis, knew that there were some worlds beyond heaven that were worlds of cosmic mind, mahar. There were worlds of tapar. Tapar loka means a world of ascetics, or where everything goes away and the soul's just content with its own light. And so this is where great souls repair to. Isn't that what we said here yesterday? He repaired to the solar world. Very first opening. Then the blessed Samkriti, who was a great rishi, repaired to the solar world. Then he bowed down to the sun god there, and he glorified the sun by means of the science of the wise. And he said, Om, salutation to the blessed Lord, the glorious sun, the power of the eyes to see, salutations to the sky wonder, salutation to the commander of the army of light, salutation to the excess of light called darkness, salutations to divine energy, salutations to light. And so we looked at that in accord with this chart. You see all these assignments that I put up there, all of these rays coming off of the sun god being some of those appellations. Like there's, of course, physical light, which gives nature its power to grant food, and physical suns their power to shine. And that's why we put here Om na tatra surya bhatti na chandra tarakam. I put the English here, that inside the indivisible self the sun does not shine. So billions of suns in the night sky don't shine anymore when you turn off your physical eyes, because you've left the Bur Loka and you're starting to go into the kingdoms in heaven, of heaven within you, as Jesus said that he could do when he was in meditation. So your consciousness is turning off to the gross level and turning on to the subtle level. And that's 2 worlds right there, gross and subtle, or body and mind, you might call them. And so it's everywhere in both of those worlds. So it's simply shutting off its cognizance of one and turning on its cognizance of the other. It's not shifting, it's not moving. So we should probably be clear of that Brahman is all pervasive. And so is your Atman, because Atman is one with Brahman. That is your Buddha nature, if you want to call it that, or your Atman, is all-pervasive too. So it can shut off to certain levels of consciousness and turn on to others. And it, like I say, it practices that every night when it goes to sleep in dreams. I'll show you a little chart on that too. So the physical light is there, and then the sensual perception matches it, and then knowledge and prana are there as rays on either side of Surya Narayan. And then wisdom and mental comprehension are another kind of light, the light of intelligence. That's where you're going more towards the causal level of things, or deep sleep. You have a causal body, you have a subtle body, and you have a physical body, 3 bodies, and they go with the 3 worlds. And those also go with AUM, called Om, the word. So you're tracing it all back to the word, but as you hear about these triputis and acknowledge them inside of yourself. If you've been born in a culture that doesn't teach that, then you can't find fault with the Dharma because you don't know the Dharma. First you have to hear the Dharma, and then you can either accept it or reject it, or take but parts of it, apply to your growth, and remove obstacles so that you can see. It's what he is. He's the remover of obstacles so that you can see, and the deepest kind of seeing is from here. The seers, when they come into the body, they come in through here and they exit through here. And of course the avatars would do that in a 1,000-petaled lotus. We were just hearing about that in the Gospel of Ramakrishna as Gyanashri was reading it before we opened. And welcome to live streaming class of my students around Europe and India. And so, yes, I've just been reminded that some of you didn't actually get the Akshi Upanishad copy. So those of you who didn't, can you please pass them? Anyone? You want one too? If you're going to be following this. These are free because I'm printing them out because they're not in any book. So these minor Upanishads. Everyone got one now?
Thank you.
Yeah. When we study the minor Upanishads, some of them have been put in book form. There's a book called The Minor Upanishads by the Ramakrishna Order, but that only contains a handful of them, of these 99 or so that Shankara didn't comment on, so they didn't really see the full light of day in the public domain, because he lived in 700 AD, and so he was one of the great contemporary minds of India. 700 is recent for India. So when he commented on 10, maybe 11, we're not sure, of these Upanishads, those became major Upanishads because a great mind had shed light on them in our age. So that's why some of these have not been looked at. Shankara only lived to 32 years old. He knew all the scriptures by the time he was 10. This is immediate recall from his past lifetimes. So he didn't have time in everything he did for the world and for us, particularly inside of India at that time. Now we have Vivekananda, who's busted it all wide open and brought it out of India. And now we have access to it even as untouchables. See, we call the Indians untouchables, but they say, no, you're the untouchable. Mm-hmm. So to bring it to a materialistic culture and shed the light of the spirit in it and awaken us up to the fact that one religion is not the only way, or one particular savior is not the only way. In fact, truth is beyond religion, and it's beyond saviors, and it's beyond liberation and bondage. It's not an act, and it's not a thought, and it's not a concept, and it's not a personality. It's a principle. It's that open way to truth that anyone with higher intelligence, which the sun god is shining here, will know. Intuitively they'll know it, even if they're born in a religion. That's why Swamiji said it's good to be born in a church, but don't die in a church. So you have to go on and find this great way, because if there are millions and millions of souls who are going from lifetime to lifetime in ignorance, there's also thousands and thousands of souls who have found that great way, and they're merging in Brahman every lifetime, and they're coming back, and if they're Jivan Muktis. And we said that's one of the great things here that Brahmavidya reveals to us. So Samkriti goes to the sun god. It means he repairs to the solar world. That's beyond this world, beyond heavens. And he repairs to the source of all suns, which is the light of wisdom. This is a representation of that. And he finds the sun god, and he uses the science of the wise to propitiate him. That he's buttering him up, like I said yesterday. See? And then he asks him when he's pleased, because he says, O sun god, you are thousand-rayed, you exist in myriad ways, you are the life of all animate beings. I meditate upon you, you are omniform, compassionate, omniscient, ambrosial, the essence of light, the scorcher of sins and darkness. Salutations to you, the offspring of the infinite, the power of the eye to see, the flood of days. The flood, all hail. And so when the sun god hears Samkriti invoke him in this way, then he's, what would you like, my son? Why have you come to flatter me? I know I'm all that. And Samkriti says, would you please transmit to me Brahmavidya? I want it straight from the source. So he's the offspring of the infinite. Brahman cannot transmit you anything. Brahman is not a thing. Brahman is not approachable. You're either it or you're not. And if you're not, that's called ignorance. So it's not a being that you can go to. So that's why the gods play such an important part. The West is beginning to develop some sort of cosmology for itself. America never really had a cosmology. And it looks to Rome and Greek. That's why our White House and everything else has pillars and things like that. We borrowed our philosophy basically from the Greeks and Romans. And they didn't go that far with it. Some of them got very enlightened. But when you go to India, then you look into the very third eye of non-dual wisdom, which has been concentrated on for many, many, many cycles. And so Samkriti wants to get the Brahmavidya transmitted to him by a form, because he's in form. So this is the import of deities. Like deity yoga means, Tibetans have brought that to us now. We have some way of understanding deity yoga that there are gods and goddesses, or devas and devis. But we have to make sure that we make the connection that these are inside of us. They're our own powers. The gods aren't higher than the humans. Humans are higher than the gods, because the humans hold the gods inside of them. And that's been a sort of unknown fact that's been related by India for a long time. They sing you songs about it. When you receive the feet of Brahman, you'll remember this very important day. All gods and goddesses are in you, and they will obey you. So the power of the eye to see is a god. It's called an indriya. And they don't call it the eye there, you see, or a fleshy orb. It's the power that causes the eye to see that's the god, and it's in you. It's your power. So if you lose control of it, then it looks like, it's greater than you. You see, oh, I've lost the power to see, or I'm not seeing very well, or I'm not seeing inwardly, which is a big problem for us. We're going inwardly every night, but we're not seeing where we go. We're shifting levels of our own consciousness. So if you had the power of the eye to see, and the power of the ear to hear, and the power of the tongue to taste, and the power of the hands to feel, and so forth, and the power of the lungs to breathe, the prana and so forth, which all are granted by this great being called Surya Narayan, the offspring of the infinite, then you'd be a masterful person with all your sense organs under your control. It's the first thing Krishna asks of you in the Gita, for instance. Get your senses under control. Oh, I think they're as hard to control as the wind, Arjuna complains. Yes, they're hard to control, but they can be controlled by abhyasa yoga, the yoga of constant practice. So I think the benefit of the Jnanam, or the wisdom yoga, as compared to or in complement to the bhakti path, the devotional path, or the meditation path. The power of the wisdom yoga is that it will destroy your ignorance quicker, sooner than any of these other paths. And when it gives you right orientation, like the Eightfold Paths of the Buddha, you get right orientation, and then you go into bhakti, then you go into meditation, then you go into action, and everything is clear. You see. Otherwise, you go into these other areas of life with even a little bit of ignorance in you, then that's going to get superimposed over everything you do, everything you think. See, you're not having the perfect right orientation. It's like having a hair in your food, or a grain of sand in your bed, because you can't quite get comfortable. And everything that you think or don't think, meditation, for instance, is affected by that. So Sankriti then evidently wants all his ignorance removed by this scorcher of ignorance. There's no darkness around a sun, Vivekananda used to say. So that's why we use the sun as a metaphor for meditation. I am the sun. And it's so much better than say, I am a humble little being with no worth, or I'm a sinner. You see, those things are not good footings to start off on. Vivekananda used to say that. I don't believe in humility. I believe in samadarshitvam, that there's the equal God in everyone. Everyone's equal. That's my God. Darshana means to see, so equal seeing. You see, I see the same Atman in everyone, and of course that's going to mean color, creed, caste, and gender and all that. But it has a deeper meaning in that. It means that I'm now a realized soul because I see the one sentient being in all the insentient things. See, so. Nityo Nichanam Chetanas Chetananam. See, it's the eternal among non-eternal things, and it's the intelligence of the most intelligent ones. And that's that underlying Brahman or Almighty Father or Allah that beings of different religions are looking for. And if they don't have that light of wisdom, they stumble on their way, and maybe they'll then create their own path and try and find their way back to the source. The devotees just open up to this great light, and they see it. The true devotees of Lord, we call them the children of the Divine Mother, like Sri Ramakrishna and his 5 million followers now. We just open up to the fact that Mother is all there is. And you can call Mother Ram or Krishna, you can call her by the names of her sons or daughters, but basically this is the Divine Mother of the universe, and she has finally come in body, with Sri Sharda Devi. Sri Ramakrishna brought her with him. And now, as my teachers say, American women can find the true meaning of freedom. So Sri Sharda Devi has come, the Divine Mother of the universe is the mother in form. And now we can turn to her and use her to return to our own true nature. So the sun goddess would be one of her children. The 10 Manus, for instance, are all called great sons. So they're the mind-born sons of Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma was projected at the beginning of the universe by the infinite mother, you see. Yo Brahmanam Vidadati Purvam, as I chanted yesterday morning. That one Supreme Brahman who projected Lord Brahma at the beginning of a cosmic cycle and delivered the Vedas, Upanishads, unto him, who is the eternal bridge to immortality, who resembles fire that has consumed all its fuel. I go for refuge to that one Brahman, whose light turns our understanding towards the Atman. Then we see the light, it looks different from us, then we go towards the life like a moth towards a bonfire, and we see that we are that light. We immerse ourselves into it. So you're rehearsing for that every day of your life, every breath, because you'll soon be breathless. it would be better to be breathless consciously because it's called kumbhaka. So if you just go into deep sleep, you go breathless for a while, and you don't, it's not like drowning where you're struggling and suffering and then brain cells die and hope come back to your mind. But it's natural state of breathlessness where you can go for minutes without breathing. Well, you have to do that not just in deep sleep, but you have to meditate and cut time down, cut space away, and you'll realize that you're not breathing and haven't been breathing for a long time. You'll become wonderstruck and sent into a breathless state. Kumbhaka, it's called. You know, in yoga you practice in-breath, puraka, held breath, kumbhaka, and out-breath, rechaka. And then there's another held breath down at the bottom. So they want you to become conscious of these three, actually 4 movements of the breath, and non-movement too. And if you can do that and balance it out, all of a sudden your heart rate slows, your mind stops thinking, and you're getting into a kumbhaka state. So you can actually use a practice to put yourself in peace. If people knew that, they wouldn't ever be without peace. This Holy Mother, whom I was just praising as the Mother of the Universe, said you need peace of mind first and foremost. You can't achieve anything without peace of mind. So we think, restlessness will achieve everything for us. But you're doing the action to gain the thing in restlessness, so it's going to be tainted with restlessness. You don't know this. And then you're eating food in restlessness, so the food is going to be tainted with restlessness, and the energy that's in the food will be tainted with restlessness. You'll digest it, and it'll turn into poison instead of nectar. If you ate it in peace of mind, in acknowledgement, and I'm not saying just, oh, thank you, God, for this food, because I just said you can't thank God. God doesn't exist. The way we think of it, when we think of God, we're worshiping the ego. We don't know that. Our religion say, well, we believe in God. Well, there's no God in the world. God is transcendent of all worlds. That's what the scriptures say. It's a transcendent reality, and you're looking for it in all the wrong places. Calling it a he or a she, or calling it a form or formless. It's not going to work. It doesn't accept cheap bribes, like rituals and things like that. So you have to realize that you can't pray to it. There's no prayer and prayee in God. And you're in God, you're one. And it belies every variety, every duality. It's beyond thought and matter, and it's beyond energy too, if you're studying it in science. So you have to raise yourself to that. You can't pull it down to earth. Now, that having been said, the deities become important. You get to the Father through the Son, see. So you're going to need a grand form or an ideal to talk to about formless Brahman, so that you can merge in it like you do every night in deep sleep without knowing. But now you're going to have to do it consciously, and consciously stop your breathing, and consciously eat your food, and consciously study the scriptures, and so forth and so on. It's not just mindfulness that they're teaching. Oh, I have to be mindful of every little thing. That's a good practice. But it's actually acknowledgments of the perfection in all things. And all those things, you're one of those things, you see. But that's why we say, don't find fault with the world. And it's easy to find fault with unreal things. The body is an unreal thing. And the mind also gets transcended, like in deep sleep. Your ego gets transcended in deep sleep. So if things get transcended, there must be a transcendent reality that consciousness is repairing to. He repaired to the solar world and encountered the sun god. So he knows there's something transcendent, so he's seeking it. And he's using the science of the wise to propitiate it. And when he gets there, then back to what we're saying here is that Surya Narayan, call it Ra if you want, or any other worship of the sun that has gone deeper than just the outer sun, smiles upon him and says, yes, I will transmit to you the Brahmavid. So that's where we left off yesterday. Verily, Samkriti said to the son, O Blessed One, teach me Brahmavid. The son told him, Samkriti, listen, I shall set forth the knowledge of reality so hard to come by which knowledge alone you'll become liberated while living in the body. So the highest ideal of this Upanishad, as in many Upanishads, is called Jivan Mukti. You must become a Jivan Mukta, a living liberated soul. And the path leading toward it is called the 8 stages of yoga. Those become clear as we will get into the later slokas. So that you're going to have to appear here with me in August. Let's see, late August, early September, and look into these coming slokas. In the meantime, that's sloka 1 we just recited, and we got into what he was inferring about this knowers of Brahman when we started studying this chart yesterday and ran out of time. So there you see, this reality is so hard to come by, and the knowledge alone of it will liberate you while living in the body. So living liberated beings, and this brings forth the teaching of finding a living liberated being like he's doing to teach you. And so that's called a Brahmavid. You must become a Brahmavid, that is, knower of Brahman. So you're going to have to be aware of the cosmology, know the Dharma teachings, and open your third eye and see the Lord. And since you can't see God with these eyes, John said, then you're going to have to use subtle eyes. You're going to have to turn off these outer things. Everything outer you're going to have to turn off. And you're going to have to master that so that you can turn it off like I could turn off this light switch here. Don't do it. We need it for the camera. So to be able to turn off and on the senses is a requisite of yoga. Yoga means union. So if you're going to be in union with yourself, because God is actually your own self, it's not somewhere outside or in the sky or even in heaven. These are some of the requisites of yoga, which are leading up to, as someone said yesterday after the class, control of the mind. Because the senses are connected to the mind. The senses connect outwardly to the objects, and the objects are made of 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether. So earth is smell, and water is taste, and fire is sight, and touch is air, and hearing is ether, akasha, yeah. So there are 5 elements, and those came last. To modern science, those are everything. See, they'll study the 5 elements and maybe even leave out the 5th. We won't think too much about that because we can't see, taste, touch, hear, or smell it. And it's undisplaceable, so it confuses us, you see. But that's the doorway to the inner worlds, is the 5th ether, akasha. If you know that space is undisplaceable, whereas air can be moved, then you know that there's a subtler element, and it's a metaphor or a doorway into these other worlds inside of you. So you're shifting to a subtler kind of space, and then another subtler space, back in origin. 5 different kinds of akashas. So we don't know about those akashas unless you study the Dharma. So you can't explore them. Or they may happen to you by accident, and you'll be surprised. Oh, I had a vision. Well, where did that vision take place? Well, in the mind. It didn't take place out here. I mean, on the road to Damascus, Paul saw Jesus. No one else saw him in the whole train. See, so it was obviously not taking place on earth, because no one else saw it. So he was in a subtle state, and he saw Jesus in a subtle state. And it's the same thing that happened with Moses in the burning bush. It didn't really happen in physical space. So consciousness has become rarefied. It's shifted to a subtle space, and there it sees these other things. It's not a miracle. It's just a matter of a shifting of consciousness, which, when it opens its subtle senses and closes down its outer senses, sees these things as a matter of course. And so it's not it's not a miracle. People become too obsessed with miracles about this. It's just a natural state of your own consciousness that you should be able to operate. And dreaming and deep sleep are examples of it. You do it every night, but you're not convinced of it, you see. Oh, I did that. I think it happened to you by some coincidence or something random. Or see Jesus walking on the water to come and save you like Peter did. You know, it's not Jesus' actual body walking on water. That doesn't happen. You can't transgress the laws of the physical universe. So it was in his mind. He prayed to Jesus. Jesus was on shore thinking about his disciple in peril, and the vision came, and it gave Peter the courage to get out of his predicament. So we all have to get out of our own predicaments. And point here being, you can use the deities because they're parts of you see. It's not like, oh, please come save me. It's like, I think I'll save myself. And so if you have this orientation, the gods and goddesses will all come to your aid. If you don't have this, then they're fickle. See, go out in a sailboat and the wind god will stop blowing. See, you're sitting there dead in the water. So you want to produce rain? No, pray to the rain god, but pray to him inside of you, not outside of you. Oh, please, clouds. You know how fickle the clouds are? Go for a picnic and they're ruining your day. So you must invoke everything as a principle inside of yourself. Everything comes from within. Kings of heaven are within. I don't know why they didn't unwrap that better in Christendom. So where else would they be? They're not in the body, because the body's full of filth. And they're not up in space, because there's nothing there. We've looked. And in fact, there's only 3 elements up there. We're lucky we have 5 here. So the more complete rendering of this is then to go to the kingdoms of heaven within you. And as you do, as Ramakrishna was reciting to his devotees in the gospel before class started and we were listening, he said, all of these worlds opened up to me, these lotuses, chakras, you see. And they opened up to me and I saw them open. You know, they were drooping first because no attention was being put on, just like a flower without water, and all of a sudden they opened and he saw the various beings inside of those lokas. And this was all happening inside of him. He didn't project his consciousness outward somewhere. You see, we got all misdirected by astral projection in the 60s. See, we're like projecting ourself above our body. Oh, I'm in the room, I'm looking down on my body. It's just you're still in physical space, basically. So it's an involution you want. You want to go inside yourself that produced the room, that produced the house, that produced the world. That all came out of your thinking process. These are your thoughts. So Holy Mother used to tell us, objects are just thoughts made manifest. You think them first and then they appear. Well, that can happen in a billionth of a second, like a changing atomic particle changes in a billionth of a second, so you should be able to believe how swift things can happen if you've studied the atomic structures of things. Or it can happen over ages, yugas. See? And the yogis and seekers of enlightenment, they want to cut time down and happen right away, so they go to the Word. So that's where we went when we went yesterday to the second chart, the swan, because he says here, the beloved swan, the essence of purity, is the prototype of the bound soul, called the jiva. But the jiva should get jivan mukta, should become a jivan mukta. So the jiva, unaware of itself, is man, bound, mankind bound. But the jiva aware of itself is God. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that. So that's the jiva, jivan mukti state. He's become a jivan mukta. My teacher used to go on and on about America. Here's the goal you really should be headed towards, this jivan mukta, jivan mukta. You should become a jivan mukta. Get past the intellectual frame of reference that's concentrating on atomic particles and matter only. and get into your own, the source of everything. There are particles out there, there are particles in here too. So we have a whole different particle theory to give the Western thinker, Western man. That there are wisdom particles inside of you that, when they congeal, form objects. You're the author of the universe, not God, not nature. You're the author of nature, not God. God doesn't author anything. God doesn't create. In fact, he has to use the word to project. So in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So when there's beginnings, that's when Brahman needs to project a trinity, and that trinity will then produce the worlds, so that God remains untouched, unsullied, unbound, indivisible, eternal, ever free, beyond time, space, name, form, and karma. Perfect and pure, your essence. So he says here, it's the essence. The blessed swan is the essence of purity. That's your nature. So if you want to go to the prototype, we go in this age to Sri Ramakrishna. What did they call him? Paramahamsa, the swan, the blessed swan. Fully realized soul. Jesus come again, if you will, although Jesus maybe wasn't going to come again. He's either come again many times, and we haven't seen him, or nobody's acknowledged him, or he came once and that's enough. See? He didn't treat me so nice, so I don't think I'll come back. See? There's nobody like Jesus. They all hated him. We don't realize this. See? And then those who say they love him used him. And now he has to shed his blood for your sins, and so you can keep enjoying a limited state of the body-mind mechanism in an unreal world. So what kind of a savior is that? Swami Vivekananda said. I will never worship a God like that, and I'll never put any other soul through that for my sins. See, if I have sins, which of course my essence doesn't, then I will rectify those myself. I will be my own savior. So be thee perfect as the Father in heaven is perfect. So these ideologies get skewed over time, and it's not just Christianity. Hinduism happened there too, and it happened to other religions. Krishna is saying it right in that picture on the wall there. From age to age I embody myself forth for the destruction of the old dharma and for the resurrection of the new dharma. And a couple thousand years after that was said, Christ said it. I have not come to destroy the words of the prophet, but to renew them. And then 550 years before Jesus, Buddha said it in his way. See, so you might as well be the same being coming back again and again. But these beings, when they come, know that there's no movement, and they know they're not the body. So this is a great double advantage they have over most other beings who think I'm being born and I'm dying. The soul is unborn. It's acreate. You can't create a soul. I mean, think about it. Could your soul be created, much less out of dust? It's pure conscious awareness. So there's no beginning or end to it. So you have to meditate on your soul as an eternal verity. Then you'll see all the gods and gods inside of it. Gods and goddesses, you see. Deities, however you call them. So this is part and part of the non-dual aspect of the Brahmavidya that the sun god, Narayan, Surya, is giving to Samkriti, starting to hand it out to him here. So we looked at these various levels of a knower of Brahman in accord with verse 1 when he says, I shall set forth the knowledge of reality so hard to come by, knowing which you will become liberated while living in the body. That's called bodhisattva in Buddhism, if you wish. You're liberated while living in the body. So then we looked at the 4 qualities of an authentic teacher given to us by Shankara in the Vivekachudamani around 700 AD, which we had have read this all before the wash of so many teachers, or so-called teachers, came over from India and other parts, or even started emerging in the commercial age out of Christendom. You see these evangelists and so forth. So basically we would have known that if we wanted to find a teacher like Samkriti has found, he had to go inside deep for it, then we're going to have to find someone who does not have any selfish motives for you. Oh, I don't want your money, I don't want your body, I don't want fame or notoriety, and so forth and so on. I just want you to get enlightened. And I don't want you to suffer anymore. It's just compassion. And compassion isn't an award you win. It's not a quality that you're proud of. It's just what you feel when you see someone suffering. If you're a sensitive being, you want to lift it. And you go about doing it in a selfless way. Otherwise it's pity or, just maybe empathy. You say, oh, look at them suffer, I'm so sorry for that, and you walk away. But real compassion, authentic compassion, is the second best quality there is. And the first is love. Vivekananda used to say, we Vedantists don't believe in compassion, we believe in love. We help them because they're our own self. Everyone's our own self. That's why he said, Samadarshitvam, I believe in the equality of everyone. So I'm not going there to help them because they're suffering out of compassion. I'm going there because myself is suffering. An aspect or a part of myself is going through misery and so forth. I just naturally want to get rid of that, so I won't have peace of mind if I don't. You see, so it's not an add-on or a badge of authority or some award that you're given. It's just a natural state of things. So that's what's meant by a kamahata. They really don't have any desire for anything from those beings that you're there to assist. And so that would be a requisite of a true teacher. Second one would be shrotriya, transmit the essence of the scriptures. All right, well, my way of transmitting the essence of the scriptures of you is to sit here for hours talking about each sloka and create charts so you can have visuals. Because I think, as was said in one of the charts yesterday, and in one of the slokas, that if the guru speaks a few words into the ears of a qualified soul, they'll get enlightenment in a few days. The Turiya state should be realized by you in a few days if you have a good teacher. That's because you're ready to hear it. But I don't think the Americans are ready to hear it. Maybe the people of this day and age aren't ready to hear it yet because they're under the conventional press of dualistic and fundamentalist religion. And they believe in such ridiculous things as original sin and seven-day creation theory. God does not create. This is all a projection of your own mind. And if you get billions and billions of minds together, it's a lot of power to create, project things. It's called sankalpa. We don't have a word for it in English, so you have to go to Sanskrit. Sankalpa, mental projection based on desire. And when you get all those millions of minds, then you create a heaven to go to. And that heaven seems real to you. And then you bounce back from heaven back to earth. And your first mantra is, wah, wah, wah. You see. And you do this again and again, you see. So when we look at a baby, you see, oh, goo goo gaga. You see, oh, how sweet. When a seer looks at a baby, says, never again. Never again will I fall into that condition. So this is all sentiment and sentimentality. And you're not seeing, another thing you're not seeing is what's in that so-called clean slate of a baby's mind. When it develops, it's got some scars. That's another thing we don't have a word for in English. It's got mental impressions from its past lifetimes. Let's look through them here. I made a chart like that. I was thinking, oh, there's one. Many lifetimes of lawyer. Ooh, you see. There's one. Oh, an axe murderer. Let's not. That one is it. a great philosopher. Well, that might help, you see. Especially if he's Eastern. Because if he's Western, he'll just come out and argue about the truth for money. So we need to look into the samskaras of these children that we're raising, because Christ said they're not our own. So we can't possess them. You can't possess anything. India knows that. You have to leave it all in the end, so you don't get attached to it and so forth. These are all basic teachings of the sadhana scriptures, how to practice. But to acknowledge your perfection first is very important. If you started off believing what fundamentalist religions tell you, then it's going to be very difficult for you in one lifetime to get free of that darkness. And heaven's lights shine, earth's shadows fly. Life is a many-colored dome which stains the pure white light of eternity. A Western poet penned that. So the mind is a big dome with many colored crystals, you see, and the light comes down through it, hits those crystals and turns into a rainbow. And that's what's called worlds and nature, plants and sunshine and children and angels and everything, which is just a whole formation of our own ideation process. Vivekananda speaks about that. We just go on creating these forms and calling them God and so forth. God, gods, demons, devils, they're all projections of our own mind. And you are beyond them all. And if the mind falls into the rainbow spectrum of the mind and begins to water those seeds that are there, then you've got these lokas. See, we looked at them yesterday. Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, Janaha, Tapaha, Loka, Mahaloka, Brahmaloka, Satyaloka. These worlds are kingdoms of heaven within. So, Shrotriya, to transmit the essence of the scriptures, is going to clear everything. Like putting alum in brackish water. Poof, it clears up right away. So that's what you want to do with this dark waters of the mind. So you put that element of Atmagyan or Brahmavidya that Samkriti is asking for into the mind and watch it clear. And see yourself as you truly are. See the great self. There's no God. There's no devil. There's just the great self. So Swamiji isn't saying that God doesn't exist. He's saying it exists as something other than what you're thinking about it as. It's not a creator. It's not a father or a male. It's not a form. And if you went to Surya Narayan, he'd call you, it's a great light. And I'm a spark from it. So it's a create. It's the word that Vivekananda coined in 1893 when he came here. Oh, I see, you're thinking of God as a creator. It's a create. Try thinking of it that way. There's no God, there's no devil, there's just a great self, and that great self is you. That you've broken into many parts, many sparks, is a trick, is a sleight of hand by Maya. Maya is the ignorance inside of you, through which you projected the worlds. While God stood back and said, what are they doing? Taking my light, turning it into objects. Better be careful. My teacher used to say, Americans, 2 wars have come and gone, a 3rd is on the horizon. You better beware. So, go the way of Rome and so forth. To transmit the essence of the scriptures then would be to sit here and take apart a sloka like that for hours and hours and days, and after I'm through speaking it, you should go home and look at your notes and think about what I said. That's why the new media and technology here is helpful, because you can look back on these YouTube classes. And YouTube classes by the Swamis of the Ramakrishna order are out there. These teachings are being given out to people in Western countries now. You have access to them, but you're going to have to develop in you a taste for them. See? And then when you hear a little of the non-dual truth of them, that's it. It's too late. You can't save yourself then. The ego will die. As soon as it hears the non-dual truth, whether it takes 4 days to a qualified soul or 4 lifetimes to a person who's still growing, it's all over. The house of Maya will become crashing down around the ears of all and sundry. Sri Ram says, it'll come crashing down around the ears of all and sundry. Whether it happens at death, but it would be better for you if it happened right away, that you saw through this ruse, this pulling of the wool over the eyes, opened this eye and saw the truth. No matter how painful that truth might look in the beginning because of your attachment to mundane human convention. You need to get that glimpse now, because all of life is just a rehearsal for death. And death is an illusion. So the essence of the scriptures will deal with things like this. The third was avrijana, must lead a pure and simple life. Unostentatious was the word we used. And then Brahmavid, to be a knower of Brahman. Now here's a Brahmavid right here, what he has or she has. And then there's Brahmavidvara, then there's Brahmavidvaraya and Brahmavidvarishta. And each of these souls has been studied over countless aeons by the rishis and noted for their various qualities. So a Brahmavid has Subecha, Vicharana, Tanumanasa, and Satyapati. 4 of the 7 stages of knowledge are there. And so what are those? Subecha is right aspiration, detachment, knowledge of the scriptures, and wisdom. That's Subecha. So you must find that in your teacher. Like I found it in Swami Sheshananda, so then I could bend down and touch his feet, covered with these old clumpy shoes that he got in the West. He clumped around the ashram with them. You knew when he was coming, and most people ran the other way when didn't want to get scolded. Vicharana is the second of those. Proper inquiry, gains all virtues, knows the nature of Maya, and contemplates Atman. So it's not enough just to have wisdom. You have to look for its source inside of yourself. And that will mature you. In Buddhism, this is called the 10 Pure Lands. So you could put the 10 Pure Lands next to the 7 stages of knowledge in 2 different ages of India's spiritual manifestations and expressions, and you'd see how they differ and how they are similar. So usually they call this second step of yoga, all knowledge lies within you. So I was saying yesterday, if I spoke to a classroom of kids, first thing I'd say is, what are you doing here again? You already know everything you're studying. And if they took that tact and they believed me, and then they went to study, everything would be clear to them, you see. Straight A's. They say, well, you didn't study that homework. Well, I just found it in me. See, I knew everything in me. It was in me. I just had to find the right avenue. Oh, yes, that's right. You see. And I can attest for that, not with schoolwork, but with dharma, that I found the dharma within me, and that's why, and Sri Ramakrishna could talk for days in this vein. And so if I became his disciple and meditated on him for 40 years, I would get that. See, if he wanted me to have it. Divine Mother would grant it. So you find everything within you, and then you transmit it, right, toward the essence of the scriptures. And then you share it if you are of a mind. So that second stage is vicharana. Vicharana really means to analyze and to assess properly. Vichara was Ramana Maharshi's way of not this, or I am, or who am I? Who am I? Atma Vichara, we call it. Then Tanumanasa is the third. Peaceful mind is free of desire, masters concentration, and transcends the mind. The Brahmavid we're talking about, he also has this, Satyapati. universal intelligence, attains renunciation, equality of vision, and understands the non-dual truth. So those four things, those four levels of knowledge are assigned to the Brahmavid. He's the first level of teacher. Now, the way the Brahmavid differs a bit from the Brahmavidvara is the Brahmavidvara adds to that Asam Shakti, or I like to call it awesome Shakti. So Asam Shakti, she's so awesome is what I mean. So means non-attachment transcends the gunas and becomes jivan mukta. So what Surya Narayan's mentioning here, the Brahmavidvara has become jivan mukta, free while living in the body, and merges in the Atman. So before that, the Brahmavid could contemplate the Atman, but hadn't merged in it yet. Hadn't had the experience of actually merging in it, like the hailstone falling in the ocean, and that's all over. And then can come back out of the ocean to tell what it experienced there. Good luck with that. But probably one of the main things there that's of value to us in the philosophy is it transcends the gunas. The gunas are very difficult to get beyond. One of the pictures behind you there on the mantle, Sri Ramakrishna's direct disciples, he had 16, Christ had 12, Buddha had 8, and so forth. So you'll know them by these beings that come with them too. So one of those is called Swami Triguna Titananda. Triguna, the three gunas, Atita, transcended, Ananda, bliss. So he got into the bliss of transcending the three gunas. So if you talk to Swami Triguna Titananda, he probably would have at least been a Brahmavidvara. And he would, if you read his letters that are written in the books in the Ramakrishna order, you'll see why. Letters to people that wrote him. Then there's the Brahmavidvaraya. Brahmavidvaraya has Padartha Bhavana, has attained the sixth stage of knowledge. I mean, it has all the other five, but adds to it this sixth stage, which has to do with a firm grasp of truth, has identified completely with consciousness, which means has disidentified with everything that's unreal or changing, and sees God in everyone. Sri Ramakrishna said that is the last word in spiritual life and practice in this world. In this world, so you're able to see Brahman in everything. It's a very rare being that can do that and actually attain it, not just speak of it. So then you have the Brahmavidvarishta, the best of Varishta. Sometimes we call Sri Ramakrishna Avatara Varishtaya. We chant that in the beautiful hymn, Om Hrim Ritam. So Brahmavidvarishta means represents the best of all avatars, of all these divine incarnations came in the form of Sri Ramakrishna. So that being, who is a Brahmavidvarishta, abides in the self, immerses itself in Brahman and rests in the disembodied state completely, is at ease in formlessness, whereas other beings maybe a tendency to come back to form for whatever reason, but is easy abidance in formlessness. That's like a natural state. It'd be like a mountaineer who, didn't have to come down off of the heights, got used to not breathing. See, it's actually very apropos to the breathless state. If you're up there at 10 or 12,000 feet, other beings have oxygen or tanks or something, but he's become so acclimatized and so used to the heights that he doesn't need to breathe. Just a little oxygen will do him, and he's happy there. That would be sort of a metaphor for a soul who can remain at the highest level of these chakras. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, I always ran a boat race between this, and this chakra, you see. My consciousness ran a boat race, he said. So you never know where you'd find him. Totally gone, and sitting there for hours gone, and they're waiting on him to come back to consciousness. Or coming back and describing his visions, or coming back and speaking the Dharma. He said, when I want to go to when I want to see the devotees, I go to the fourth state, the heart chakra, because that's like the drawing room of a rich man, you see. that's where you'll find him. Rich man likes to be in his drawing room, smoking his pipe with his feet up by the fire, and so forth. So he said, that's where I go when I want to see the devotees of the Lord, because they can't usually make these higher chakras to meet me. You see, they're not climatized there. So that's a rendering of, in a very nice way, and gives us a kind of a rare view into India's long-standing love relationship and wisdom relationship with realized souls, that they produce so many. And it's not just one scripture there and one savior or something and a couple saints. It's like hundreds of all kinds of realized souls are there in India. Well, there's the final quote here, and we can move on from this chart and go to the second sloka. It says, "The painful rounds of birth and death and ignorance never cease until one has reached the first level of jnana wisdom." Oh, let's look at that again. Right aspiration, detachment, knowledge of the scriptures, and wisdom. So Vashishta says, this great rishi who was one of the mind-born sons of Lord Brahma, so he knew the sun god well, he says, rounds of birth and death will never cease. Now the premise of the Akshi Upanishad that we're studying here is soon to talk about the first stage of yoga. That's in sloka 9 and 10. So it's going to talk about the first stage of yoga as souls that qualify themselves so that they don't get into the transmigratory cycle again. I say good folk, good God-fearing, heaven-loving folk are still in the rounds of transmigration. Or if you want to put that another way, negativity is an iron chain and positivity is a gold chain. So good heaven-loving folk are still chained to the three worlds, to the rebirth process. And that's why you see good people here. I hope you're still finding them out there. People who are not confused, they're devoted, they're simple, they're the salt of the earth, all that, humble, helpful. See, lots of them, but none of them are enlightened. My parents were like that. I knew they weren't enlightened, but they were good folk. So we have to, again, not be sentimental, and we have to call a spade and look at the truth as the truth, is that if you reach these higher levels of right aspiration and so forth, then you'll separate yourself from the transmigratory process. And there is no religion in the world that tells you this, other than India's religions. You noticed? It's all seeking heaven would be the highest. But they don't want you to seek heaven. My teachers just say, I do not care for a post-mortem emancipation. That's how he put it, you see. Vedantists do not care for heaven. That's how I got back in this body, is by caring for heaven and connecting to my ancestors, you see, who want children. They want children, and they want to have children. They want to possess children. They want to direct children. They want to use children for their own age, for their old age and so forth. So all of these selfish intentions are in there, in families. The world is a huge pit. Your relatives are vipers inside. Who said that? Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said that. So Christ said the same thing, so don't get all, oh, India is off its rocker or something. If you're a high and mighty Christian, what did Jesus say? Those who love their life will lose it. Those who hate their life will get it again in eternity. See? Or, I have not come to bring peace. I've come to bring a sword. And with the sword I'll separate father from son, mother from daughter. See? He'll separate them. Why? Because one wants the world and the other wants free. So getting beyond the transmigratory process is a huge step, but it's just the first stage of an 8-stage yoga that the sun god is giving to Samkriti because Samkriti asked him, give me the Brahmavid. He wasn't getting it down on earth. He wasn't getting it from his parents. He wasn't getting the Brahmavid from religion, from churches, from temples. And he wasn't getting it even from good folk. They weren't thinking that way. The world is their oyster. See? So India's religion is based on a very fearful word that we don't like, renunciation. That you should, since you are rehearsing for death right now, all of us are, with every breath we're rehearsing for death, because when the breath's gone, you almost died. As one of my black friends said, I think, my black brothers. When your breath gone, you almost died. So I was thinking, yeah, that's a good pranayama kind of teaching. So since we're all doing that, then we ought to do it consciously and face off with it. In yoga, you face off with your demons. You never let them push them behind or let them lurk and come up later in the worst of conditions. That's why people see demons at the time of their death. Like one of my grandparents. Horrible. Of course, demons too are wrathful deities, if you look at it from the East. If you see demons at the time of death, you should probably laugh at them. You're inside of me. Look at this. Is he trying to scare me? Who's your daddy? Is he?
You know who I am.
You're looking at me? So this is why this quote, and I didn't get to finish it, painful rounds of birth and death in ignorance will never cease until one has reached the first level of jnana wisdom. So we ought to look at that level and attain it for ourselves. Next, to attain that, seek virtue and develop indifference to the world. Then take recourse to the spiritual teachings transmitted by an illumined preceptor. There's your illumined preceptor described for you right there. Now we know what kind of qualifications we need in order to reach the goal. I don't know if it's up here still. And we're not going to go into it because it's, oh, here it is. It's all set up here. There's Swami Vivekananda in the West. And we've taken and done a whole retreat, like a 7-day retreat on this chart. Because I took basically just some of the points of each of these darshanas, these pathways in India, and put the main requisites that beings would have to teach, would have to learn in order to call themselves qualified. So these, you could pick any one of these paths. You could pick Kundalini Yoga, and then you need to know about the chakras and so forth. Or you could pick Buddhism, and you'd want to know the Four Noble Truths. You know, first one being, there is suffering. Suffering is. And or you could pick Vedanta, and we'd be talking about neti neti, you know, not this, and how to do practice. So we won't go into this because it would take a long time, and you'll just have to find out when it's going to be taught next, or look back on these YouTube videos, because I have gone through it in some classes before. But I am just saying, as they say, here's what qualification of the student is like, then here's what the qualification of the teacher should be. So we've got to look at both sides now in that case. Of course, there's Holy Mother herself looking out upon, what's that? The Bridge of the Gods. So I came across the Bridge of the Gods. Our retreat there is this weekend. 40 miles away or so, I came across the Bridge of the God, took a picture this way, and used it for the cover of our magazine, Nectar of Non-Dual Truth. So I'm standing here, that bridge, and then superimposed Holy Mother behind. And we've got this nice backdrop now for this chart, which is called the 4 Levels of Knowers of Brahman. So that's what's being inferred by this first sloka when he says, I shall set forth the knowledge of reality so hard to come by which knowledge alone you will become liberated while living in the body. So he makes his first mention of liberated in the body, jivan mukta. See, mostly for the goal of most people in this dualistic religion that we're in, heaven is the goal. And heaven is not defined very well for you. In fact, from what I've heard, it's streets paved with gold, running with milk and honey. And that sounds like a sticky mess to me. So, you know, that's of course a metaphor, and I'm joking, but heaven really, we know then, is the level, is the realm of your ancestors. And they've gone there, so they've gone inside of you. If if you're gravitating to the lower teachings, you say, well, this is why I have to get rid of my grief, because grief is a deadly trap. I lost a baby, get another one. I lost a grandparent. It just went back inside of you. Contact him there, you see. So you have to automatically default to your Vedantic settings. These would actually be Vedanta's lowest level of settings, because you should have gotten over that a long time ago. Gotten over it so much that you didn't have children anymore and didn't become a child. You were always the Atman anyway. So why have you descended into thinking that you're growing, that you're born, that you die? See, we sang that yesterday in a stotram by Shankara, who gave us this teaching. Namrichor na shanka, name jati beda, pita naiva me naiva, mata majanma, chidananda rupa, shivoham, shivoham. Chidananda Rupa, I am the bliss of pure consciousness. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. So Shiva is also that great God within you. He happens to be the M of Om, A-U-M. Everything is over now. Shiva, come and dissolve it all for me. And that will happen inside of one lifetime for the enlightened soul who's reaching Jivanmukta. Shiva will help him dissolve everything. But it'll also happen over 4,320,000,000 year cycles when worlds go back into formlessness. At the time of Pralaya, everything melts away. Then everything is Brahman. And I reside in Brahman. This is Holy Mother speaking, Divine Mother of the Universe. Then I, the Shakti, the power that animates everything, also goes back and resides in Brahman, in formlessness. So, and each breath, you take an in-breath, you hold, don't you? An out-breath, you hold. Those two holds are Shiva. You don't exist there. In-breath is life, held breath is death, you see. So, or the first held breath might be sustenance, and the out-breath might be death, and the second held breath then would be formlessness. See? So every breath you're telling yourself, I am Shiva, I am Shiva. See? Go to the god of prana, or the sun god who grants prana, and ask them, what's my breath mean? See? He said, well, first take a search, come back later. You see? So then you'll find out the meaning of things. So before that he said, Namrichor Nashanka, Name Jati Beda. I have no death, Namrichor, because I was never born. So how do you understand that? Because here I am, I came out of my parents, out of the womb, and a fetus and so forth. So all that was your dream, away from yourself. And dream power, sankalpa, is very powerful. You can create whole cloud castles in your dreams tonight if you're a good dreamer. And they poof, disappear when you wake up. See? So just like that, you're in a dream right now, and that will also poof, go away at the time of death. But it would be better for you if it went away at the time of meditation, that you could do it yourself, you see. I am now dead. My body's gone, my senses are shut down, I've stopped breathing, my mind stopped thinking. Isn't that the description for meditation? And those are the very things that people can't do. Can't stop from fidgeting, so I'm still the body. My arms are twitching, angamejayatva, prashvashaha, I can't control my breathing. It's erratic, my heart's beating strange. And finally, I can't stop thinking, see. In the beginning, your folks tell you, would you get busy and think? See? And you start thinking finally, and then you go to a Zen teacher. Would you stop thinking? You see? Well, make up your mind, world. You see? What do you want of me? So to turn it off and turn it on, is kind of the art of it. My teacher used to say that, and he was a 93-year-old monk when he passed. And so he used to say that detachment is a teaching, and attachment is, a potential evil, but you should be able to attach and detach at will. So if you're a mother with a child, you're definitely attached to the baby. See, put it in the crib, you're not attached to it anymore. See, sleep. Or your children are not your own. You see, I see the difference between the children, the way they're taught and treated in India. Oh, I love you, and I'll go away. See, I won't think of you till I see you again. But we've got to have cell phones, and we have to have gizmos that go up into the bedroom that you can hear if the baby cries, and you'll go running up there. If it's destined to die, it'll die. There are certain things in life that are predestined. Marriage and death are two of those. The rest of it is rather random, depending on your own karmas. And each soul will have different ones. So as we reach the end of the first half here, we have wrapped this up in accordance with that first sloka. So maybe we should stop here and take up another chart and the second sloka. This is going to be nice because it's about a jati. It's at the very top, and Sri Ramakrishna used to say this, get the non-dual wisdom first. Hear that, put it in your wearing cloth, and then go out into life. Anytime you come into doubt, take it back out, look at it. I'm the Atman, I'm the Atman. Okay, I remember, you see. Because Maya is so inscrutable that it'll get in on you, and you think you know, and all of a sudden you don't. So you have to be very practiced, and like these stages of attainment. These are no joke. These are definite attainments, qualities, attributes that these beings have sought, and those are the fruits of spiritual life. They've attained them, and they're not backing off from them anymore. So, therefore, we should go forward and hear about this non-dual truth. That's the next sloka, sloka 2. Ajati means no birth. I was never born, as I just sang. So let's read that sloka so we can think about it at the break. All is one, unborn, tranquil, endless, certain, immutable. See reality as spirit. Be tranquil and at ease. That's like the first instruction out of Surya Narayan's mouth to Samkriti. The first was just to tell him about the knowledge itself. Now he says, my first instruction to you is non-duality. So there's no practice in that. It's a statement of fact. And that's why Vedanta is the finishing school of all religions and philosophies, because you can't really find instance of practice in it. You have to go to yoga for that. Vedanta just states what it is, the truth, this open way I talked about at the beginning of class. So let's meditate upon that as we take our refreshment. Thank you, and we'll be back in 15 minutes. we have returned to the second class and the second half of the second class on the Akshi Upanishad. So power of the eye to see doesn't just mean the outer eye, but also this third eye or inner eye, or Gyana Chakshu, as Krishna calls it, or if thine eye be single, as Christ mentioned it. So we have this light, radiant light, at that center of awareness. The hub of everything is really 3 below, 3 above. So the heart is really, the fourth chakra is really where you get beyond transmigration. If you arrive to the heart chakra, you penetrate through the ancestor realm, which is in the 3 lower chakras, heaven, earth, and so forth, and even hell. We say the patalas are called in Buddhism. There are 7 hells, but you get beyond those as you transcend through the 3 chakras. There's a Vishnu Granthi, it's called, a knot, a subtle membrane. It's hard to put it in terms of anything but bodies and so forth, but if you penetrate through that, you get to the heart chakra, and that's the end of transmigration for you. Some people probably have glimpses of the heart chakra. They feel the outpouring of love and devotion, and maybe have visions and dream associated with that. I'd say basically people's experiences are they might have memory of dreams of their ancestors. So they probably went to the third chakra and in those lands inside of themselves again and had darshan or had some remembrance of that and come back, like I dream about my father at least maybe two times a year, and the main aspect of that dream is that I thought he died. That's what I'm thinking when I'm having my dream of him. I thought he's dead, but he's still alive. I'm here with him. So it's very beautiful, and which is another proof, that nothing ever dies. Nothing's ever born. It just takes a body and gives it up and goes back to its source, if you will. So the difference between those chakras that you're having darshan or communications or communion with souls who haven't transcended the 3 lower chakras yet, who are still transmigrating, and the non-transmigratory levels that happen after, is that now you're having visions and dreams of seers and prophets and sages and so forth. And these beings are coming to impart some Brahmavidya to you, or some higher knowledge, because your consciousness has become acclimatized and been able to penetrate through that Vishnu Granthi. That's how they would call it in Kundalini Yoga. And this is all Kundalini science, one of the aspects of yoga. And Ramakrishna himself has mentioned if Mother Kundalini doesn't awaken, then there's going to be no spiritual growth for you whatsoever. She has to awaken. And so she's a very subtle dynamic power, Shakti she's called, Kundalini Shakti. And she can appear as a, 4, 10, 16-armed goddess, but it's just representative of how many powers she has. Her arms are her powers. She's really formless, a formless energy, and she will take form for your sake. So may she, the primal guide, my refuge be, as Vivekananda said. He was a monk, and he had his devotion to Mother Kali, like his master, Sri Ramakrishna. So with those words to start the second half, we have completed the sun god salutation, and we've also completed the qualifications of a teacher and looked very in depth at how the 7 levels of knowledge pertain to them at deeper and deeper levels of realized consciousness. It's like you're reclaiming ground that you had forgotten about. Again, you use metaphors out here for that. Like there's a song in India that says, my mind's a jungle, oh mother, my mind's a jungle. If I could just clear 1 acre, I'd build a temple there and worship you, you see. But then there's another song that says, after I've reclaimed that 1 acre, then I'll start clearing the rest of it back. And my vision is to build a huge temple for all of humanity to worship in. So now the vision has shifted from just my own Jivan Mukta to sarvamukta. I want everyone in knowledge of their divine nature. It's just something they lost memory of. It's not something that they lost. They just lost memory of it. And the reclaiming of memory, smriti, has to do, first of all, with remembering your past lifetimes. In Western medicine, Western science, Western psychology, Western upbringing does not believe that. Or some of them may intuit it, but don't put it into words. You'll talk to them and say, well, rebirth may be. My brother sent me a cartoon yesterday. There's this man sitting on a couch with this little boy. And the little boy's saying, well, at your age, I didn't believe in reincarnation either. So, that's why I say some beings intuit it, and just don't speak it, But you don't want to speak it because you don't strew pearls before swine. It's a horrid way of saying it in a way, but it's true, is that beings are bestial in their thinking process. They're animalistic still. And they're attached to animals, and they're eating animals. I don't consider animals food, so I don't eat them. So food to me that wouldn't even come up, that you would think of eating a living being. But the remembrance of your past lives then is connected to that lifetime where you first took birth. It's called primal ignorance. You separated yourself from yourself. Sri Ramakrishna said the ego is like a line drawn on water. And you draw it there and it seems like it's two pools when it's really one. But for a worldly person, he says it's like a stick placed on water. If you draw a line on the water, it'll disappear in a few moments, and you'll realize, oh, that was just a false superimposition, everything's one. But a stick placed there will last a long time with the illusion that there's two sides of water. I and my father are not one at that time, we're two. That's dualism. And it's a stage you have to get over. It's a sweet stage if you're mature in it. Oh, I love God, he's in heaven or he's outside of me or whatever. It's fine, you have a relationship with him. But you never know the truth that I and my Father are one, which is what Jesus shone with the light of that realization when he came out of the wilderness. He sat under a tree too, like Lord Buddha did, and got that realization. And 550 years apart. And then he said, I'm the light of the worlds. So it's all very beautiful. And of course that was before there was anything called Christianity. It was old Judaism he was coming to resurrect. But the Jews didn't accept him. So, in general. So, when these great beings come, they come to show you that they are the light of the worlds, but you also must realize that you are that light too. Anything else is just post-mortem emancipation, right? And is putting everything off in time. There's an eternal moment that you should live in, but here you are, living in the three phases of time: past, present, and future. So sometimes people say, well, I live in the present. I say, well, I'm sorry for you. I live in the eternal moment. See, the present is a phase of time, and in that present, you're ignorant, and in that present, you're eating food without blessing it, and in that present, you're eating animals, and in that present, you're killing in war, and in that present, you're having your pleasures, and in that present, you're watching TV. That's not the eternal moment. It's a phase of time that goes by day that you waste. So when we say he's the flood of days, see, he's given you the light that lights up the worlds. That's the flood of days. And you have so many of them. What are you doing with them? See? The ultimate thing to do with them is to realize that there's just one eternal moment, and the sun is shining always, despite clouds. And the same is in your mind. The sun of your Atman is shining there, but your mind is in a cloudy state, off and on, from day to day. So your flood of days, your life in the current of time, is coming to an end, Ram Prasad sings in one of his songs. My life in the current of time is coming to an end. So you're in this current of time, past, present, and future, and you're having these experiences in a flood of days that's been granted to you by Surya. And the light is there. And even when it's dark, it's beautiful. See? So if you're living in the eternal moment, all of this is Brahman. And if you're living in the three phases of time, all of this is changing Maya. And it's much easier to navigate the first. It's a much better perspective to have. So that perspective is the first thing in the science of Brahmavidya that Surya Narayan wants to give to Samkriti. He wants to remind him of this non-dual truth that is, as I say, probably remembered by breaking through that barrier of I don't believe in more than one lifetime. Or if you say I do not believe in more than one lifetime, you believe in birth and death. But the Indian seers have told you, Jesus has told you, Buddha has told you that there is no birth and death to anything. There's just eternal life. They were living in it. They didn't believe in those changes that people had superimposed over the truth. So why don't you do the same? Pick up your cross and follow me, and so forth. So in that case then, Samkriti is immediately wizened and illumined by this statement: all is one, unborn, tranquil, endless, certain, and immutable. See reality as spirit, be tranquil and at ease. That's really pretty much the essence of non-duality. And here is what is called a jativada. And here is also the other component to it called a parinama. Now, we'll take up this chart at the retreat next weekend. And this chart and one other that has to do also with non-duality. But it's mentioned here, and we will get to it. So I created this chart just a few days before I left Hawaii, about over a week ago, because I didn't have a chart really on Jativada. I had a chart on a parinama. So a parinama means no transformation. There is no change. And it means change is an illusion, outright illusion. And your senses, of course, are subject to it. Turn off the senses, then you have the changes that happen to you in dream. That also gets turned off. And deep sleep, then the fourth state, then proves to you that you're beyond waking and dreaming, and you're in a changeless state. Your Atman lives in a changeless state. Remember the 7 levels of the knower of Brahman, the seven stages of knowledge? One of those was living in the knowledge, abiding in the self. So that being who abides in the self is reached that, and is meditating on it, then all of a sudden is in preference of it, and is finally merged in it. So that was like the 5th, 6th, and 7th stage that the Brahmavid hadn't quite polished yet, but the Brahmavidarishta had attained. Well, it's like that here. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and turiya. Turiya is that state of complete non-change. So a parinama and a jativada are the two main staples, or the pillars, under this Nat Mandir of non-dual philosophy that India has been teaching from time out of mind. And other beings in other countries have also evinced it, like Meister Eckhart in Christianity. He was into the non-dual, beyond the Savior, and they didn't like that at all. Almost got ostracized. So there have been souls in all religions that have stumbled upon or come upon in their meditations this non-dual reality, which is like Krishna says, a thread running through everything. It's the warp and woof of the actual cloth. It's what it's made of, but what nobody ever sees, or even intuits very often. It comes to them very seldom, and sometimes that's in dream and vision. So from dreams awake, from bonds be free, know the truth. Thou art he, thou art she. So each soul has to know the truth that they are Brahman. See? Otherwise, it's a dream. And dreams may be fine, and like or they can be nightmare central. See, but if you come to know the truth, then all dreams, from dreams you awake. So in other traditions we hear, we're using dreams as a signpost, and that's okay and all right. But ultimately, dreams are to be, you must awaken from all dreams, because Brahman doesn't dream, and thou art that. So to own this territory that you're recovering as your own possession, the inheritance that you're supposed to have, is to awaken fully to that fact. So Sun God puts it here very nice, and a parinama then is non-transformation. First you have to know that no matter what changes are going outside or inside, outside in nature, inside in the mind, they're not factual. They are not actual. They are not happening. Change is an illusion. And this is precisely one of the ways which causes the individual being to shift from belief in transformation to their unchanging soul. They shift consciousness to that essence, as he said, the humps of the Blessed One, the essence of purity. So when he says it's unborn and immutable, those two words in Sloka 2, well, here's the unborn and here's the immutable. Changeless reality, that's you. And you're never born a jati. There's no birth for you, so there's no death. So all of that is also illusion. And these are both taught by Krishna in the Gita and by the Upanishads. These are the mainstays, as I say. So let's look at this birthless chart. It's not really a hard study. As I often said about Advaita, Vedanta, or non-duality, it's the simplest thing you will ever hear and the hardest thing to remember 2 minutes later. I mean, you'll have the experience of it maybe, and then you'll say, what was that again? And this experience will happen actually as direct experience or as hearing it from a Brahmavid, from a Jivan Mukta. They'll talk and say, I get it. And then they'll stand up and walk away, and you'll walk out the door and say, what was that again? So it's very difficult to hold on to, and this is mainly because of our conditionings. Buddhism will tell you that. All of this is about nidanas, or conditionings, over 3 lifetimes, at least. So it takes 3 lifetimes, they say, for most beings to get free. 1 lifetime to realize that they're ignorant, that Maya has pulled the wool over their eyes to the truth. Another lifetime to do sadhana and practice and do away with that. And another lifetime to live free, Jivan Mukta. See? Bodhisattva for them. If they decide to come back and help others, it's bodhisattva. Or it'll just, like Buddha said, I'm gone and gone forever. Don't have any hope for me, for the world again. Probably didn't come back, but Buddha emanations are coming back by the dozens. Some of them 14 lifetimes old, like Dalai Lama. So, or somewhere around there. I think he said recently, it might be my last lifetime here, and probably partly because Tibet is just a vacation land for the Red Chinese now. So and he said, they asked him once, what will you do now? Well, just like a wounded animal, retreat into a cave and I'll meditate on my Buddha nature. You see. So he knows the whole thing is unreal. He came back, did his best to help, and but the main essence of it is really what's being said here. Even though Tibet changed and Mao Zedong came and Dalai Lama had to be reborn and all of this, that's all parinama. It's change, it's not real. Where did it go in the end? Where did all the other countries that got taken over and warred upon and all the beings that got killed, where did they go? See? It's like kind of a vague history in our mind. Well, nothing really happened. Whoever invented the word nihilism or void would have had to have seen it first to name it. See? So it's impossible for you to be other than full. There are words for these things. Since there are words for them, wisdom words, they exist. And so somebody had to see the void to name it. That was the witness. So You can deny the existence of everything, but you can never deny the existence of the one who's doing the denying. See, the one who's the witness. That's there in you. So you've died many times, here you are. You're still here. See? So what died with you is this ego coming back again and again. Got you convinced that you're a separate being, and you got into a habit of being born. That's one of the hardest habits to break, according to the father of yoga, is rebirth. The idea that I'm born. It's the hardest. And once you do that, you free yourself from the transmigratory service. Then one attains the first stage of yoga. Whoever entertains such thoughts as regard to crossing the transmigratory life is said to have attained a state of yoga. The rest are said to be just Arya, noble. So if you're trying to get out, trying to get free, you're just noble. But if you've actually transcended the transmigratory state, and you know it's all happening in your mind, and nothing happens, you see, then you change the first state of yoga. You're one with that Brahman. And you've settled that doubt, you see. That's a doubt that dies in you, and then you get to the second stage called analysis. Well, I'm jumping ahead to slokas 9, 10, and 11, but as it all connects to this is non-transformation as compared to transformation, and this is non-birth compared to people who believe in birth. So this chart at the top, we see Swami Sheshananda Maharaj, may peace and bliss be upon him, my teacher here in Portland, that taught you this wisdom for 40 years, saying, quote, Atman, the indivisible soul of mankind, is unborn. It does not pass in and out of existence. It is existence. This truth is discovered in consciousness as an eternal verity. This is not a matter of going inside or outside. The infinite Brahman can never be realized through the finite universe. Mind and matter are neither destructible nor indestructible. They are unoriginated. So, non-origination is a jativada. There's no beginning, no end. There's no birth, there's no death. There's no creation, there's no destruction. Let's get it straight. That's all happening in the mind as thought. And so are all the worlds in which you're living, in which you're having these thoughts. All false superimpositions over the truth that everything is one indivisible Brahman with no changes in it, and it's eternal. Eternal is another word of saying doesn't get created and doesn't get destroyed. So science has said that matter is destructible. I disagree, he used to say. Matter is not destructible. Matter is not indestructible either. It's non-originated. Non-origination is the word the father of Advaita Vedanta, Gaudapada, Shankara's teacher's teacher, used for this pillar of Advaita Vedanta. Non-origination. Everything's unoriginated. If you were to go far back as you could inside of yourself to the first demiurge of your soul, you would find that that's the word. In the beginning was the word. That's what Jesus meant about it. It's the first source of origin, but when it's with God, and then it was God, they become one. So the word is just like what I'm saying right now. If I know what I'm saying, then I speak the word. The word is a secondary thing. It's knowledge, right? So it's a second thing out the gate. Intelligence is the first thing out the gate. But inside of the gate is the divine being who knows. So knower and knowledge and active knowing is all there. So in that way, when you say everything is unborn or unoriginated, you're transcending both the idea of things get destroyed, created or destroyed, and you're also going beyond the idea that they're indestructible, because if they're indestructible, that means they were subject to destruction at one time. So the word they came up with was a jativada, non-originated. There's no origin to it. If there was an origin, like I say, you would go back to the word. And that would be secondary. See, that was after God uttered it. And then you could say, oh, I see a division there between God and the Word. But then later you look, when you find knowledge, and you say, oh, it was one with God, and it was God. See, there was no difference. It was an impossibility, the two-ness of it. It was a false superimposition, the two-ness of it. It was a progressive manifestation of false. Yeah, you're getting too wordy there. So it was a modification or a conditioning of it. And then the soul got a hold of it and conditioned it further, and conditioned it further, and conditioned it further out until it became variegated. So Swami Soshananda says that very beautiful. Now, here are some of the words inside of this vortex that the soul is headed towards. You see, it wants to merge this idea of separation into the Brahman. So there's the words we have for non-duality: Brahman, moksha, mukti. Moksha is a state already at hand. It's not something that's gained by practice. It's not something that evolves over time. It's not something that the soul gets because it fell from grace. It's none of that. It's the eternal nature of everything, liberated, moksha, mukti. It's not gaining of freedom by any means. It's that everything is always free. So this is a Jativada idea. Formlessness is another word, getting to English. Transcendence, awareness. Back to Sanskrit, nirvikalpa. Nirvikalpa means time, nirvi means extinct. So you've rendered time in its phases extinct. Vikalpa means to imagine things in time. Kalpanika would be a closer Sanskrit. So to imagine things in time. So nirvi means you wiped out imagining things in time. You got tired of that game because it was jati. Something got born, something lived, and something died. So it's not the nature of Brahman that you're meddling with there. Or it was parinama, in order to turn the changeless Brahman into a seemingly changeful thing. See? It was a false superimposition you placed over it with your own thinking process. So nirvikalpa is our word in Vedanta. Chaitanya is just consciousness with a capital C. Kaivalya means isolating yourself from everything that changes. Kaivalya, according to the father of yoga, the word that he used means isolation from nature, because nature is the hub, the producer of forms. And the first forms are in your deep sleep. There are seeds there. You water those seeds, then you dream, then you wake. And then you go back to the seeded state again. So you're constantly using these seeds and watering them and bringing them out into form, and then doing away with the form and going back to formlessness. So Kaivalya is getting over that tendency. I'm not going to water seeds anymore. Therefore I have to isolate myself from nature. Nature is seeds. And we see that outwardly for sure. Thousands and thousands of seeds producing thousands and thousands of trees, which produce more thousands of seeds. I've got a chart now where I call it pumpkin head. So you've got like a pumpkin, a whole bunch of pumpkins in a field. And you cross-section, cut one out, and there's seeds inside of it, you see. So these are minds, pumpkin heads. See? And they've got all these seeds for creating more of them, like watermelon. See? And it just goes on and on forever. So you would isolate yourself from the whole field if you get Kaivalya. You'd separate yourself from nature, or any kind of idea of production, or change, or beginnings, birth. And you would just live in your birthless, deathless nature. That's where you see a Sri Ramakrishna or a Ramana Maharshi or Swami Vivekananda or others living in that state. And from that state, a Brahmavid can be born and turn into a Brahmavidvarishta, through the Brahmavidvarayan, all those levels of knowers come out of that realization. So Kaivalya is a very pregnant word and very beautiful. Kaivalya. Everyone say it. Kaivalya. Yeah. isolation from the production of forms. And then Buddhism is seized upon nirvana. Of course, Krishna also used that in the Gita, and seers have been using it for a long time. Nirvana, nirvikalpa, made to make extinct, to blow out. Like if all of your thinking process was in a candle flame, you just blew it out. See? Or if you were more careful, you'd wave it out.
Not the band.
Huh?
Not the band.
Not the band.
Not the band.
Nirvana,
Sorry.
not the band.
Not the band. Oh, not that. Oh, I see. All right. Yeah.
You kind of destroyed that
I
word.
wonder how they understood that word when they named themselves that.
Such a bad band. Good word.
No comment. I'm a musician. No comment. And then Satori, and that's of course Japanese, the Zen. You know, it's the Satori. And like we're talking about Atman, they talk about Busho. You see, this birthless, deathless nature. So those are some words to use for this one non-dual state whose premises are non-birth and non-change. Now, this next to it is incomplete theories about the soul and creation. Some people think it's the will of the Lord. Some people think it's the work of time and space. So you've got will of the Lord would be the creation theorists, and the work of time and space would be the scientists, basically. Or for the sake of enjoyment, or for sportive play. So each of those is denied by Gaudapada and the Advaita school to be incomplete. Only Advaita is supreme. And because if the Lord were complete inside of itself, up to kama, free of desire, why would it project a place where desires could be fulfilled? Why would souls separate themselves out? Besides, when we say the Lord, what are you talking about? Brahman is not a person or a personality. So if you're saying it's the work of Lord Brahma or the Trinity or something, okay, well then I can give you a concession there. And then we're going to have to agree to disagree, or maybe debate a little bit about the nature of creation and projection. Why the Trinity is set up, like the Word, to generate forms, from causal to subtle to gross. And if you believe in sportive play, this is all dreamlike. You see, Leela. So we heard Shamakrishna talking about that in the gospel this morning before we were joined by the live streaming audience. He was saying that my most mature opinion is that the soul starts at the Nitya, the eternal. It descends to the Leela, sportive play, and then it goes back to the Nitya. So he's allowing for eternal existence, and also that somehow it comes into form and sports, like playing in the fields of the Lord. See? But at the same time, he's saying that sport and play is based in a Jativata and a Parinama. It doesn't actually happen. It's a dream. It's a nice dream. But he didn't say that the soul starts in the Nitya, comes down to the Leela, and then loses itself in the Maya. What happened to that part? Millions of souls that lose themselves in suffering and rebirth all the time. What happened? That you just didn't sport a little bit and return to your source. That's what life should be. I came, I saw what was here, I satisfied with the desire I had for it, or I became completely averse to it because it's so false. It's change amongst changelessness, and I gave it up right away, and I went back to my highest nature. So Sun God is saying here, Jivan Mukta, get your individual liberation. But these souls that come once and leave are called Videha Muktis. They see it once and they never come back again. Their coming was for some reason, but it probably wasn't for their own anything that had to do with their own attainment. They were past masters. That's what Krishna says in the Gita again. I have nothing to gain here, Arjuna. There's nothing here in the three worlds that I desire. I only come back for loka sangraha. So loka, world, sangraha, the highest good. I only come back and appear here for the highest good of the beings in these worlds. What is the highest good of beings in this world? That they transcend the illusion of finitude, transcend thinking themselves to be bodies, transcend their own egos, which are blocks, stumps in front of the mansion that you have to jump over, transcend the transmigratory process. That's the highest good of the worlds. Because how can you enjoy something that's constantly changing? How can you be when you're considering yourself to be born and death is coming? So you're living with this foreboding in the back of your mind, this fear, this doubt. No matter how good it gets out here, it's going to be taken away. That's one way of putting it, but the best way to think is it never happened in the first place. How can it be taken away when I don't own anything? It's the ignoble mind that vomited out the worlds. That's actually a verse in the song. I mean, he sings things like that. They sing things like that quite a bit. Shudam vishudam avicharam anantarupam nirlepa lepam avicharam anantarupam nishkanda kandam avicharam anandarupam Gyanamritam samarasam gaganopamoham Gyanamritam samarasam gaganopamoham. So it's all about this radiant light. So he sings, knowing the Supreme Brahman, one dares not place it in the context of divided or undivided, change or birth. One does not place it in the context of the pure or polluted, or having form or being formless. Effulgent like the sun, it is infinite and beyond even the intellect. I am pure existence, wisdom, and bliss, as boundless as the sky, self-effulgent like the sun, and infinite like space. That's the way he ends every verse of these 40 verses. Jnanamritam, samarasam, the ultimate bliss, supreme enjoyment. Jnanamritam, the wisdom of the drop of nectar of immortality. Jnanamritam. Gaganopamoham, that I am, not any of these other things. So I can't talk about Brahman as being pure or impure. I can't talk about it as being born or unborn. It defies all that. All I can do is be it. And to be it, I know it. So beautiful stotrams and verses written in that way. Back to this chart. So those are the incomplete thoughts about the soul and creation. Theories. It's not the will of the Lord. The Lord is beyond willing. See, we've talked about that already. It's not the work of time and space because those are illusory. We're looking at it as linear, but actually it's a layer cake. So each world is topped like Russian dolls and back inside of themselves. And they all exist at the same time. They're unborn and they're undying. And the change that takes place in them is apparent only, not actual. Because the soul outlives it all and witnesses it all. And so time and space, the work of time and space is, time is more like a layer cake, not a linear line. And in space it's not a matter of 15 million year march of the hominidae coming from a monkey, coming from a chordate or a eukaryote or even a Judas Iscariot. You see, it's before that. You see, it's anterior to life and mind. You never were a paramecium or a monkey or even a human. You are always the divine being looking on the process. So you're going to have to look beyond the world of matter in its linear time back 4 billion years, of which only 15 million of them you've been here walking on 2 legs. You're going to have to look beyond that and go involution style. See, science has evolution, but it's devoid of involution. My ancestors were not found in the zoo. My ancestors are found in the solar line. That's why some Kriti repaired to it. He went looking for his great-grandfather. Swayambhuvamana. You know that word? Yeah, the Hindus will immediately go, Swayambhuvamana, yes. You see, these are the gods of the solar line. They're the children of Lord Brahma, who was the firstborn. So immediately they go, yeah, that's my ancestors, you see. And trace them back to Ram or Krishna or whatever, you see. And thousands and thousands of lifetimes of worship. It's in the makeup of the samskara, of the mind. So not the work of time and space, not for the sake of enjoyment, surely, because those things are insipid and pass and sap the vital energy out of the senses. And for sportive play, I'm not going to argue that one. Greater beings than us have deigned to participate in sportive play. So that's on the fence for me. Right? But Gaudapada said, why would the Lord want a sport? He's like, cuts it right out. But the truth about the soul and creation he's very clear on. He says, it is unborn, ajati. It is free from sleep. It is devoid of dreams. It is free of names and forms. It is spontaneous and immediate. It is omniscient. It is free of conceptualization, beyond the mind then. And it is intense concentration without end. The best he can do in words. So this Gaudapada's Karika has amazed Eastern and Western philosophers alike. Our founder here, Lexixon, did his dissertation at Columbia University on that Gaudapada's Karika. And other souls have pondered it too and has said that's remarkable. We don't have anything in the realm of philosophy like that. So sometimes we take it and study it on retreat. So let me show you a few instances. I don't want to go into this until the retreat. But here, in this rendering of Advaita Vedanta's word Om, and how A stands for waking, and how U stands for dreaming, and how M stands for deep sleep, and then Turiya, the fourth state beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, is a way of personalizing Advaita Vedanta, if you will, and rendering it accessible to you. Just like we said earlier, all of the gods and goddesses were in you. Well, that's taking cosmology and deities and so forth, rendering them into yourself. Now let's do it philosophically. And that would be your own consciousness as it divides itself into 4 states, or 3 states, if you will. So let me read you Gaudapada's further sayings on that. Let's see, that's not it. I hope I put it here. This is condensed out of all those 4 prakarnas in Gaudapada's Karika. I took out my favorites. There exists only Paramatman, the supreme sentient soul, who though one and all-pervading, is aptly situated in 3 states of its own desiring, its own devising. Ever the transcendental witness, it enjoys the gross waking state through the body and senses. It experiences in subtle dream realms, being the projecting mind, and is a knower of all in deep sleep via the intelligence of the heart. The enjoyer and the enjoyed, that one who retains awareness of non-duality, yet who knows these two to be separate, although he enjoys, is never contaminated thereby. Now, this seems to lend a little credence to the idea of sportive play, that if you come into the body and you know yourself, then you can do anything you want here and never get, let's put it this way, never accrue karma. My teacher was named Asheshananda. One way of defining that is Ashesha, no residue, at the end of his life. So he made sure that he lived in such a way that he would accrue no residue, no karma, so that at the time of leaving his body it would be an easy matter. See, nothing to hold him, no baggage, as they say. So that's how to live free of karma and its residues. Now, one other thing, I'm not going to take this chart apart until the retreat this coming weekend either, but I want to read you this condensation of Gaudapada too. He says, when mind enters Atman, its variances are seen as unreal, and peace descends. Atman is like intense concentration without end, but free of conceptualization. Atman has neither destruction nor origination, bondage nor salvation, nor emancipation. This is the highest truth. In its dynamic phase, it diversifies entities. Those few who recognize Atman's envisionings perceive its beauty everywhere. For them, no difference between Jiva, the embodied soul, and Atman, the Supreme Soul, exists whatsoever. Thus, seers declare non-duality alone is auspicious. And at the top, perceiving the suffering of this finite world, one should turn to the Atman, the unborn, who is infinite. So the minute you were born, and this is instanced by people like Ramana Maharshi or other people who, like Christ at 14, left his father and mother. I have to be about my father's business. When they get a glimpse of the world, like Buddha going outside the castle and seeing the 4 signs and leaving the riches behind. All these stories you hear about people at a very young age seeing the world and renouncing it on the spot. These are great souls. And the rest are just noble. Arya, as the Upanishad says. But they have transcended the transmigratory process. They probably did it many lifetimes ago, but it's the nature of Maya that you have to take a form. And when you're a form, you're a fetus. And when you're developing, you have no brain. And there's no place for which intelligence to visit yet. So time passes in Maya. That's the rub on taking a form. That's why the seer would look at the baby and go, oh, I don't know if I want to go through those 10 years again. You see, who knows what will happen to me, what kind of parents I'll have, and so forth. Of course, in Tibet they're saying, you choose your own parents, you see. And you choose your country, and you choose your everything you need to do. And some people are just good choosers, and others make bad choices. And some are mixed, good and bad. So if you know yourself, and you know that you're in charge of the process, and all these powers exist within you, and you've also got this baggage floating around, then you'll take care of your P's and Q's before you come anywhere near this world. And that's where you see a realized soul or a past master. And then people look at it and say, that's not fair. Why are they so holy and high and I'm not? You see? And then there was no God that did that and graced that to them, and there was no devil that kept you from being that. It was just your own karma. There is no God in this universe, there's just karma. Karma is the God of this universe. And when you get that clear, you give up sentimentality, you get up praying, you give up looking for the grace of God, you give up seeing everything as the will of the Lord, and you give up dreaming and waking and dreaming and so forth, and you see yourself as unborn, as the original. The blessed soul is the prototype of the bound soul. He just got through telling Samkriti. So you are that original, Adya, see. And then you produced a secondary body, mind mechanism, and that forgot its original. See, it's just a matter of forgetfulness, that's all. And as soon as you remember, you've half the battle is won. And then you work on yourself, as we were saying, and polish your diamond. There's a nice Zen koan that says that. Woodcutter suddenly realized he's a diamond cutter. So you're supposed to go meditate on that. What's that mean? Sweating. You say, I got to tell the Roshi tomorrow what that means. So it's actually woodcutter. He's there in the world working with his ego and so forth. Realizes that actually that's all futile. He's actually the diamond cutter. He's polishing his own perfection. And the perfection is real. The polishing is not. But yet it has to be done in order to get the best, shiniest jewel. See? In this world anyway, so you have to be practical about it. So this is how non-duality gets treated even in a dual world, where he says here, everything's at variance. So those were some quotes from Gaudapada I wanted to pull from this chart to explain this. Now let's go back to this chart and finish it up. This is a brand new chart. Nobody's seen this yet until now. So a few quotes there. Gaudapada again, mind and entities are traditionally known as free of creation and destruction. Traditionally means in the Advaita Vedanta. The seers see the soul and they say, they were never born. They see the body and they say, that's an illusion. So they're free of creation and destruction. Although the souls themselves are believing in it, the seers look at you and say, that soul, that's free. Which is precisely why if, say, Christ saw somebody getting stoned, you see, would step in and save that person. And then, not because they were a sinner, because that was the Atman he was saving. The forgetful Atman. You just save her or him because now go and sin no more. You see, just the soul is sinless. It doesn't have a black mark on it. It just fell into an unreal predicament. And if it imagines itself or believes what people are saying about it, then it falls into further problems. It now has to get rid of shame, get rid of grief, get rid of fear, get rid of doubt, and just return to its original state again. So an enlightened soul looks at you and sees perfection. Swami Vivekananda would say that too. He said, never worship the human being as God. Worship God in the human being. Because if you worship the ego, then it gets prideful. But if you worship the Atman, the ego sees that it's the usurper to the throne and it abandons it. And so you're bringing out the divinity in people, not their personality. God is not a personality, it's a principle, he said. And we've known that in India for a long time, you see. So that's why Swamiji didn't talk about Sri Ramakrishna when he came. People are, who's your guru, who's your guru? Wouldn't say, because the minute he brought Sri Ramakrishna out, personality worship would begin. It's natural. And you do get to the Father through the Son, so it's also there for beings as a concession for beings of lesser understanding. They can't understand this. It's not time for them to, or too much dirt has covered the gold of their being. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that. Some beings you dig just a little bit down and there's the gold shining. Other beings you have to dig for days, you see. Shovel out that dirt. Oh, there's some gold way down there, you see. So all of this again is why time and space, is not the purpose, not the reason for the infinite. You can't find it in time and space. Time has just covered it over. Those who know this do not fall into error. That is, know that there's no creation and destruction. When the dreaming mind vibrates, it gives rise to the two and to the many. But when it is free of all cause and effect, it remains unoriginated. Ajati, unoriginated. So it's all a matter, ultimately, of the mind vibrating or not. And it's true all the way up to the Mahat. When Lord Brahma is projected at the time of a cosmic cycle, his mind vibrates with sattva. Beautiful world. If you could visit Lord Brahma's world, incomparable. That's why they call it Brahmaloka. It's the highest of 7 worlds within you. And souls go there and stay there. Just like souls will go to Christ Loka and stay there. So, but it is a great mind vibrating. And so they don't know non-duality yet. When Brahma feels Lord Brahman behind it, it turns and looks and sees it and merges. That's the end of a 4,320,000,000-year-old cycle. And everything that Brahma created will be drawn back into Brahma, and Brahma will merge in Brahman. So the whole thing is about a matter of vrittis, vibrating mind. So down here on our level, we're so small down here, we can tell you, and you're so great up there. See, down here on our level, we have to stop our mind from vibrating and experiment with that. How do I feel after a good meditation where my mind didn't think? It didn't brood. It wasn't depressed. It wasn't seeking even. It just realized its birthless, deathless nature beyond change. Ajativada and aparinama. Down here further is the embodied soul departing time and space and heading for any one of these appellations. Make your choice. You can call it pure conscious awareness, Busho, Satori, Nirvana, Mukti, Moksha. They're all words used for beings who have realized the non-dual state. So out of the Akshi Upanishad, which we're studying right now, is this sloka that we just are studying right now. Quote, all is one, unborn, tranquil, endless, certain, immutable. See reality as spirit. Be even-minded and at ease. This is the state through which you will become liberated even while inhabiting a body. So the sun god, Surya Narayan, is telling Samkriti all of this. The first thing out of his mouth is non-duality. That's the second sloka of this Upanishad. And we will look at aparinama, as I said later, and we will look at this in the retreat this weekend. The four states of your consciousness. I think we have time to take up one more sloka, or at least penetrate into it, and that's the adepts know yoga to be non-knowing of plurality, the spontaneous attrition of the object-seeking mind. Rooted in yoga, it performs actions, or averse to actions, it performs them not at all. And we can forge ahead a little bit. Aversion is felt every day to inborn tendencies to act. Nevertheless, one tends to plunge into noble actions with gusto. Although always one hesitates to regard the instinctive actions of the unregenerate, one never refers to what may compromise others, but attends to their righteous deeds. One does gentle deeds that pain none, always dreads sin, and avoids all forms of sense gratification. Such a one's speech is informed by affection and love. It is lovely and fit, with due regard to time and space. So those are slokas 3 through 7. We'll look at those this summer when I come back for the Dharma visit at the end of August. What we can do in the remaining time then is take up this chart, which I think is here, which is another new chart. It's actually an old chart with a new backdrop. And now that we've taken up aparinama and ajativada, the two pillars of non-duality, there all of a sudden Samkriti is talking about good actions, noble actions, and the desires that may run counter to them, the unregenerate people and so forth. So he's talking about that in terms of desire, karma, samskaras, and rebirth. So he's come down quite a step in one sloka. Starts with the science of the wise, declares the ajativada, and then starts to talk about how adept yogis know reality by the how he puts it here, non-knowing of plurality. It's interesting. They just do not see duality. They just see oneness in everything and everywhere. It's like some ability they acquired to quit perceiving Brahman. their song about that to Ramchandra. Oh Ram, please, I have one prayer to thee. This is my prayer to thee. May you allow my mind to quit seeing duality everywhere. Because you exist, there's nothing else that exists. Therefore, may I see only the non-dual state. So I and my Father are one state. That thou art state. Been said in different traditions. Otherwise, this happens. You can see this big sinkhole and the ice melting and water falling and sunshine behind it. A beautiful image to put behind this process of desire, karma, samskaras, and rebirth that people fall into. As I said earlier, gold chain and iron chain, they'll fall into it in different levels, as this will show you. Some samskaras will end up with heavenly existence and rebirth, some with worldly existence, and some with diseased existence. It's like three kinds of beings that are falling into this process of transmigratory existence, which he is already taken to task here in the very beginning. You see, the Hamsa, the blessed soul, is the prototype of the bound soul. It never falls into transmigration. And those who are struggling nobly to get out of transmigration, they've reached the first stage of yoga. So there's 7 more stages to go, but at least they've separated themselves from the illusion of finitude, that they're a soul that's born and dies, and that there's any change going on at all that's real, and that their desires and karmas and all that, if they appear to them, must be neutralized in that lifetime alone, in one lifetime, to make sure that you're free of weights, because all of life is a rehearsal for death. Right now, your breath is practicing rehearsal for non-breath. So if you think of it that way, then you face off with your demons, as they say. So from the story of the Muni and the hunter, Lord Vashishta says this: Jivas, embodied beings, rise out of Brahman state with no cause, but cause and effect come to them due to performing desire-based actions. So here's where we say, aversion is felt every day to inborn tendencies to act. Nevertheless, one tends to plunge into noble actions with gusto. So those noble actions, the noblest of all actions would be to do meditation, to study the scriptures, to serve all beings of God, and to increase your devotion to the Lord and Mother of the universe. Those are the noblest of all actions. So you see the Brahman state he's talking about, as it were, and then the Videha Muktis, all jivas rise from it. See, like waves coming out of an ocean. And so some are bigger waves, some are smaller, some are ripples, and so forth. So different kinds of beings rise out of the Brahman state. But he says, and they all come the first time free of cause. That's a Videha Mukti. So it comes out of the Brahman state as a living, liberated soul. It sports for a while. Remember, going back to the other chart, some beings believe that the reason for the earth is lila, sportive existence. Gaudapada doesn't accept that, because why would the Lord want to sport when he's ever perfect, you see, he says. But allowing for it for now is a concession. Those beings who do enter form, they want to play in the fields of the Lord. Like Sri Ramakrishna said, I had one desire, to be the king of the devotees. So he came now, and he's the king of the devotees. And so there's always some reason, like Krishna says in the Gita there, I come for the good of the worlds. There's no other reason I come here. Highest good of the worlds, loka sangraha. So when you see these great beings, they have maybe one reason to be here. And maybe that one reason has a few different modifications, like to sport, but to free people, or to sport, or have compassion for the suffering. Well, you'd have to sport, to see everything as God. Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, those are those kinds of souls. Or to reveal the Divine Mother of the universe, finally. That was Sri Ramakrishna's and also to show the universality of all religions. They said there's three great reasons why Ramakrishna came. Reveal the Divine Mother of the universe, to show the universality of all religions, and to show us that our true nature is samadhi. There, that's our true nature. And we want to head our soul in that direction and lift off of the gross, heavy weights of the world of name and form and time and space, or Maya, and karmas that form in it. So if souls fall out of the Brahman state, they see it once, get their jivan mukta, and return to Brahman state. Videha mukta means they don't take birth ever again. Like Lord Buddha saying, have no hope for me for the worlds of name and form. Forevermore, I'm gone and gone forever. He got out of the river and watched it cycle. He sat on the banks, got his nirvana, passed into Mahanirvana at the end. So that is one scenario. You could call it one beautiful lifetime, realizing that everything is unborn and unchanging in that lifetime. That's what gets you back into your eternal gate pass, back into the land of Brahman, the realmless realm of Brahman. Otherwise, cause and effect comes to them by performing desire-based actions, karmas they're called. So this is where jivas engaged in mental projection associate with Maya. That's the mind starting to vibrate. And it vibrates families, and vibrates cultures, and it vibrates religious traditions, and it vibrates children, and it vibrates celestials and ancestors, and it vibrates all sorts of things which are fancies of its own mind. And that's where the whole process kicks off, and all the seven worlds flow out, and souls begin to man those worlds and forget their true nature, and they get far flung from the source. Far flung from the source. All by mental projection called sankalpa. There's no word for that in English, or vikalpa. So, and then they perform desire-based actions, and karma comes to them. It's like Patanjali saying, the reason you don't remember your past lifetimes is you're trying to make money. You're giving gifts. That's what a parigraha means. Not giving of gifts, you might have heard. When you give gifts, it means you're having to get money to buy gifts to give to other people to impress them, and then you want things given back to you. And in this whole money-making, eternal money-making scheme called commerce and economy and so forth that the world's engaged in, you forget your past lifetimes the minute you come to this world. But the yogis and the seers are all trying to remember, they're meditating. And the first thing they'll come upon of any profundity, says Krishna in the Gita, is that, oh, I've lived before. Now I know why I'm the way I am. I know why the way he is. I know why the way she is. I know why my children are the way they are. All of a sudden I've got a whole different measure with which to measure phenomena, by which to measure phenomena. And I see differently, and I march to the beat of a different drummer, and so forth and so on. It gets stickier as you fall down this big vat with the rest of the melted snow. See, jivas engage in mental projection, and then they associate with Maya. Maya is the world of name and form and time and space based on cause and effect. So name, form, time, space, karma, those are the five things of Maya. And so that's why the seers are very careful of that. When they come into world of name and form, Maya's afoot, so I have to be very careful of that. So I think I'll be about my father's business at 14 years of age, like Jesus, or maybe I'll leave home when I'm a young boy, like Shankara, when he left his home at 12. So they immediately see the danger and withdraw from it, because they have a higher mission here. And this is particularly why Leela or sport may not be accepted very well by the Advaitas, because you're not here to enjoy things. Enjoyment is one of the things that put all these people in suffering. Enjoyment, is pleasure, and pleasure is pain. And these things in cycles are a part of what's creating the karma that drags them from birth to death and death to birth. Strike off thy fetters, bonds that bind thee down, of shining gold or darker baser ore. Good, bad, love, hate, and all the dual throng. No slave is slave, caressed or whipped, not free. For fetters, though of gold, are not less strong to bind, than off with them, sannyasin bold, say Om Tat Sat Om. Vivekananda wrote. Strike off thy fetters. So association with Maya, then here you see, if you were to save yourself, you might want to know that this is Brahman's Maya. How to understand that? That the snake has poison in it, but it doesn't die from it. So all of this as Brahman is a very high state. To see all as Brahman is a very high state in this world, Thakur said. So basically then you're going to have to see in the midst of this here that this is Brahman's Maya. Otherwise you're going to create a division that's not true. There's them and then there's us. There's higher and then there's lower. And there's enlightenment and then there's bondage. And Gaudapada just told us in these last two charts that it's not destructible or indestructible. It's unoriginated. So these methods that you're going to take up based on these half-true, half-false assumptions are not sufficient enough to get you up into the Brahman state again. So there has to be some secrets or some helpers that you left for yourself in a past lifetime. You see, that's your guru, that's your true friend, that's your upaguru or whatever it is. And you come upon them in this life and they remind you, oh yes, now I remember why I'm here. Wake me up. Wake them up, O wisdom mother, strip from them this Maya cover. So here we have run out of time, and we will head on to our retreat at the Windwood Waters up the gorge. Next weekend, please come and join us. There's still space. Let's end here with the chant. Om Tachnayo, Om Tachnayo Ravrini Mahe, Gatung Yagyaya Gatung Ye Nupataye, Daivi Swastarastu Naha, Swastir Manusebhyaha, Urdhvam Jagatu Besajam, Sangno Astu Dvipade Sangchatushpate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we make a humble offering of the small self into the great self. May we always delight in this offering. May we always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings be upon us. May peace come into the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and prosperity then also abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.